The sound of water echoed through the quiet backyard as Claire froze at the gate, her hand trembling against the cold metal. Her husband sat in the pool with their neighbor, their laughter drifting through the warm Los Angeles air like a secret she was never meant to hear. The sun slipped behind the rooftops, casting long shadows over a moment that would pierce the heart of her marriage. Inside the house, a folded envelope waited on the kitchen counter, one she had opened only hours earlier, revealing a truth Michael had buried for years. And now, as she watched him from the gate, the lines between betrayal, guilt, and hidden pain blurred into something far more complicated. This wasn't just a story about jealousy. It was a life-changing story about trust, redemption, and two people standing at the edge of everything they once promised each other. What happened next would force both of them to confront their pasts, face the secrets that shaped them, and make a choice that could either break them apart forever or rebuild something stronger than they ever imagined. Before we begin this emotional story, tell us in the comments from which city you are watching, and don't forget to leave your like to keep following us. The late afternoon sun stretched long golden reflections across the pool, turning the water into a shimmering mirror that held a truth Claire had avoided for months. She stood at the iron gate, fingers tightening around the cool metal, while the quiet clicks of the padlock echoed louder than any scream she could have released. On the other side, laughter drifted over the surface, soft, intimate, unbearably familiar. Her husband, Michael, sat waist-deep in the water beside their neighbor, Olivia, their heads tilted close, as if the world had shrunk to just the two of them. Claire didn't call out. She didn't break down. She simply watched, one breath at a time, while the shadow of the gate fell across her face like bars closing around something inside her. The irony stung. She had spent years believing she was the one locked out of her own marriage. Now literally they were the ones enclosed, unaware that she was there, unaware that something in her had finally snapped into clarity. She shifted her weight, gravel crunching under her shoes. Michael's head turned slightly, but Olivia caught his chin gently, pulling him back into a whisper that made Claire's stomach twist. The small act felt like a knife wrapped in silk. A heart-warming story was never promised to her, yet here she stood, on the edge of a life-changing story she never asked for. A single tear welled at the corner of her eye, not from heartbreak but from resolve. The past months of distance, excuses, late meetings, and the hidden pain she carried alone. They aligned like puzzle pieces that had always been there. She wiped her cheek with the back of her hand and looked at the lock she had just closed. It felt heavier than it should. Final. Inevitable. Inside the house behind her, a folded envelope waited on the kitchen counter. Something she had discovered earlier, something that changed what she intended to do next. Her hand hovered on the gate for one last second as a quiet thought burned through her chest. This ends today. Claire stepped back, breath trembling, and then she heard Michael call her name. Michael's voice cut through the still air, low and uncertain, as if he wasn't sure whether he had actually seen Claire or only imagined her shadow slipping away. She didn't turn back. Her steps moved steadily toward the sliding glass door, each one echoing across the stone patio like a quiet countdown. Behind her, the water stirred. Hurried movements, splashes, Olivia's surprised whisper, but Claire kept her gaze fixed on the reflection of the house windows, shimmering faintly under the fading sun. Inside, the temperature felt cooler, almost sterile compared to the heavy warmth outside. She paused near the kitchen island where the folded envelope lay. Its edges were softened from handling, the crease worn by the number of times she had opened it in disbelief. She touched it again now, not to reread it, but to remember the exact moment her world had shifted earlier that morning. It had arrived with no return address, just her name written in a shaky hand. She had slit it open with a butter knife, expecting a bill or maybe some charity flyer. Instead, she found a single letter handwritten, trembling with regret. It spoke of a secret from the past, Michael's past, one he had buried long before he'd ever met her. A secret involving Olivia's family. A debt of guilt. A history of forgiveness he had promised to repay, even if it meant sacrificing pieces of the marriage he claimed to treasure. Claire exhaled shakily, letting her fingertips rest on the paper. The emotional story unfolding around her wasn't just about betrayal. It was about the hidden pain that had been living between the walls of their home without a name. She wasn't sure yet if she felt anger or sorrow or something deeper, a kind of resignation she hadn't wanted to admit. Footsteps squished against the wet stone outside. Michael was approaching, breath uneven, calling her again with a mix of panic and forced calm. Claire lifted the envelope and held it at her side. Michael stepped into the doorway, water dripping from his clothes, eyes locked on hers with a look she didn't recognize. "Claire, whatever you think you saw..." She raised a hand, stopping him. And then she asked quietly, "How long have you been lying to both of us?" Michael froze in the doorway, the fading daylight cutting a thin line across his face. Water dripped from his hair onto the hardwood floor, each drop sounding too loud in the heavy silence stretching between them. He swallowed, jaw working, but no excuse came. Not this time. Claire watched his eyes flick to the envelope in her hand, a subtle, involuntary movement, as if the paper itself carried a power he feared more than her anger. Olivia lingered behind him on the patio, wrapped in a towel now, arms crossed tightly over her chest. She didn't speak. She didn't dare step inside. Her expression held something between sorrow and complicity, a quiet confession without words. Claire moved to the sink, setting the envelope down with deliberate care. "You had chances, Michael," she said softly, almost as if she were afraid to hear her own voice break. "So many nights you could have told me what this was really about." Michael stepped forward, hands half raised in a pleading gesture. "It wasn't what it looked like, it never has been. Olivia, she's part of something I should have faced years ago. I didn't want you dragged into it." Claire let a humorless breath slip out. "Dragged into it? Michael, I've been living inside the consequences without even knowing the story." His shoulders sagged. He seemed smaller than the man she'd married, the confident, structured accountant who once insisted honesty was the foundation of any good marriage. Now he looked like a man asking silently for a second chance he wasn't sure he deserved. Olivia finally spoke from the doorway, her voice fragile. "Claire, it's my brother." Michael shot her a warning look, jaw tight, but Claire lifted a hand toward Olivia. "No, let her speak." A tremor passed through Olivia's lips before she continued. "My brother didn't just know Michael. He saved him, and Michael's been trying to repay that kindness ever since. That's why I'm here. That's why he's been helping me." Claire blinked, unsettled. The explanation didn't erase the image of them in the pool. It didn't mend the months of secrecy. But it cracked something open, something she hadn't expected. What else had she not been told? Michael stepped closer, voice low. "There's more, and you deserve to hear all of it." Claire's fingers tightened on the counter. "Then start talking," she whispered. Michael didn't move at first. He stood barefoot on the kitchen floor, water pooling beneath him, eyes lowered, as if gathering the courage to unbury a part of himself he had long sealed away. Claire waited, arms crossed loosely, not out of anger but out of self-preservation. She could feel her pulse in her fingertips. When he finally spoke, his voice was quieter than she had ever heard it. "Years before I met you, I wasn't the man you think I am." He rubbed the back of his neck, gaze flicking briefly to Olivia, who remained frozen at the threshold. "I was reckless, angry at the world. I made a mistake that nearly ruined someone's life." Claire's brows tightened, but she stayed silent. "It was Olivia's brother," he continued, hands trembling slightly. "Daniel. I hit his car when I was drunk. I didn't hurt him, thank God, but I destroyed everything he had been working for. He was a struggling student trying to finish nursing school. He forgave me. Can you believe that?" He laughed softly, bitterly. "He forgave me before I even processed what I'd done." Olivia stepped forward a fraction, eyes shining. "Daniel said Michael was drowning in his own guilt. He said a small act of kindness could give someone a second chance, so he let it go, asked only that Michael do something good with his life." Claire felt the room tilt slightly. The secret wasn't what she had expected, not betrayal of the heart, at least not in the way she imagined. It was something darker, older, a deep trauma he had never shared, and yet the secrecy still pressed against her ribs like a bruise. "Daniel passed away 2 years ago," Michael said, looking directly at her now. "Cancer, fast, brutal. I wasn't there for him. Olivia asked for help afterward, handling bills, sorting things out. It spiraled. I kept saying I'd tell you, but every day it got harder. I didn't want you to see me as the man who destroyed someone's future." Claire's throat tightened. "But you let me think it was something else. You let us rot in silence." Michael's voice cracked. "I know, and that's my failure. Not the past, this." For a moment, only the soft hum of the refrigerator filled the air. Then Claire whispered, "If you wanted redemption, why did it feel like you were choosing her over me?" Michael didn't have an answer, and the silence between them felt sharper than any confession. The silence thickened until Olivia slowly stepped back, leaving Michael and Claire alone in the kitchen. The sun had nearly vanished behind the houses of their quiet suburban street, casting long shadows across the floor. Claire felt them crawling up her legs, as if the room itself were trying to swallow the moment whole. She leaned against the counter for support, her heartbeat echoing in her ears. Michael wiped his face with both hands, smearing beads of pool water across his cheeks. "Claire, I wasn't choosing her," he said, voice gravelly. "I was avoiding myself. Everything I buried just kept resurfacing. And instead of coming to you, the one person who has always seen me without judgment, I hid behind obligations I created." Her gaze drifted to the envelope again. Its soft, worn fold suddenly felt like the weight of everything they hadn't said in years. "You think this is about Olivia," she murmured, "but it isn't. It's about trust. You didn't trust me with the truth, not the ugly parts, not the broken parts. You left me outside your world while you drowned in a past I didn't even know existed." Michael took a hesitant step toward her, but she didn't flinch or move. She simply looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time in months. He seemed older, more human, more fragile than she had allowed herself to see. "Claire, I'm begging you," he whispered. "Ask me anything. I'll tell you everything. I don't want to lose you over a secret I should have faced long ago." Her chest tightened. A wave of old memories rushed forward. The early days in their small apartment in Chicago, when they shared dreams over cheap takeout, the nights he held her during her panic attacks, the way he used to memorize her coffee order as if it were sacred. Those memories clashed painfully with the months of distance, the quiet dinners, the excuses, the ghost of intimacy that had hovered between them. She closed her eyes. "There's one thing I need to know," she said softly. "And I need the truth, not the version you edited to protect me." Michael nodded, breath shaky. "Anything." Claire opened her eyes, steady now. "When you were with her today, in the pool, was that about Daniel, or was it about something missing between us?" Michael inhaled sharply. He didn't answer immediately, and in that pause Claire felt the ground shift beneath her. Michael's breath staggered, and for a moment Claire thought he might lie, out of instinct, out of fear, out of habit. But something inside him shifted. His shoulders fell. His gaze dropped. And when he finally raised his eyes to hers, there was no defense left. Only the raw exhaustion of a man cornered by his own conscience. "It wasn't about her," he said quietly. "But it also wasn't about Daniel." His voice cracked, the admission scraping through him. "It was about feeling like I'd already lost you, and I didn't know how to reach you anymore." Claire's fingers curled against the counter, the sting of his words cutting deeper than she expected. "Lost me?" she whispered. "Michael, I was right here, every day." He shook his head slowly. "Your silence started long before mine. You stopped telling me when you were hurting. You stopped letting me in. I thought, maybe you didn't need me the way you used to." A startled breath left her. She had built so many walls trying to stay strong, trying not to add weight to a marriage already sagging. She hadn't realized he'd felt the distance too. Michael continued, voice trembling. "When Olivia thanked me today, when she said Daniel would have been proud, I felt something I haven't felt in a long time, like I hadn't completely failed as a person. And you were gone so much lately. Your job, your late nights, the things you never talked about." Claire's jaw tightened. "So you let her be the person you opened up to?" "No," he said firmly, stepping closer. "I let her remind me of who I used to be, but I never chose her over you, not once." Claire's throat burned, but she forced her voice steady. "Then why did I feel like a stranger today?" Michael hesitated, then he whispered the truth he had been terrified to face. "Because you've been carrying your own secret, Claire. I felt it every time you looked at me, every time you avoided my eyes." Her stomach dropped. He wasn't wrong. Before she could speak, a soft vibration buzzed on the counter. Claire's phone lit up with a name she hadn't expected, one that made her breath freeze in her chest. Michael saw it too, and the room shifted again. Claire's phone vibrated again, the name glowing stark and undeniable against the dim kitchen light. She didn't touch it. She didn't breathe. Michael's eyes flicked from the screen to her face, searching, bracing, fearing the answer he already sensed pulsing beneath her stillness. "Claire," he whispered, voice barely holding itself together. "Who is that?" She swallowed hard, fingers hovering above the counter, as if the phone might burn her. The truth she had been burying, just as deeply as he had buried his, rose like cold water filling her lungs. "It's no one," she murmured, knowing immediately that the lie wouldn't hold. Michael stepped closer, dripping water onto the tile, his own fear sharpening. "Don't do this. You asked me for honesty. I'm asking for the same thing." The ache in his voice cracked something inside her. She exhaled, slow and trembling, then finally reached for the phone. She didn't open the message. She didn't need to. The name alone carried enough weight. "It's my brother," she said quietly. "Noah." Michael frowned, confused. "Noah? But you haven't spoken to him in 11 months, she finished. Her hand tightened around the phone. "Since the night he overdosed and I found him on my living room floor." A sharp breath escaped Michael. Claire continued before she lost her nerve. "I've been helping him in secret, paying for a rehab center in Boston, covering debts he owed. He swore he'd get clean this time, and I wanted to believe him." Her voice cracked. "I didn't tell you because I was ashamed. Because I knew you'd worry. Because I thought I could fix it on my own." Michael stared at her, stunned, not angry, not betrayed, just devastated that they had both been drowning in parallel without once reaching for the other. "Claire, why didn't you tell me?" he whispered. Tears welled, finally breaking free. "Because I didn't want to be the weight that pulled you under. You were already so distant. I didn't want to lose you." He stepped forward slowly, as if approaching something fragile. "You never would have lost me, not for that." Her breath shook. "Then why does it feel like we lost each other anyway?" Michael gently reached for her hand. At that exact moment, her phone buzzed again, this time with a short, urgent message from Noah. Claire opened it, and the words inside would force her and Michael to confront everything they'd been avoiding. Together. Months later, the house felt different. Lighter, quieter, touched by a sense of peace that had once felt impossible. Claire stood on the patio at sunrise, watching gentle ripples move across the pool. The gate that had once been locked in anger now hung open, restored not as a barrier, but as a reminder of the night everything broke, and everything began again. Michael joined her with 2 mugs of coffee, setting one beside her. The silence between them no longer carried fear. It carried understanding. Therapy sessions, late-night talks, and the slow rebuilding of trust had stitched their lives back together, piece by fragile piece. They didn't pretend the past hadn't hurt them. They honored it by choosing honesty every day. On the kitchen wall, framed beside a small photo of Noah smiling during his first month sober, hung the worn envelope Claire had once placed between them like a blade. Now it lived as a symbol of forgiveness, a reminder that secrets lose their power when spoken with courage. Olivia had moved to San Diego to start over, leaving behind a letter thanking them both for helping her heal from the loss of her brother. Claire read it often, not with resentment, but with gratitude for the life-changing story they had all survived. As the morning light warmed her shoulders, Claire leaned gently into Michael's side, not because everything was perfect, but because they had chosen to keep walking forward together. Second chances, she realized, weren't given by fate. They were built with humility, truth, and the quiet willingness to try again. Michael brushed a thumb over her hand. "We made it," he said softly. Claire nodded, eyes misting. "We're still making it." And in the soft glow of dawn, surrounded by symbols of their hardest battles and bravest choices, they found something deeper than reconciliation, a new beginning shaped by the invisible strength of kindness, dignity, and family. Thank you for staying with us until the end of this heart-touching story. Tell us in the comments which moment touched you the most. Subscribe and turn on the bell to receive more stories that inspire and transform. Leave a like if you believe in the invisible strength of kindness, dignity, and family. And thank you for being part of this community that believes in stories with soul.